CS2 is dead. I've played 3.2 hours of this stupid game. And really, I've been spending all of my time on VALORANT.
Oh my god!
Now, I love Counter-Strike, but I can't help but notice that everyone from major winners to the biggest streamers are slowly trying to incorporate viewers from the dark side. Now, I know. My main video on this channel is a video where ohnepixel reacted to me and I got disliked to hell for saying VALORANT is good.
But you're burning $40.
But who's laughing now? Exactly. Not many people. There's not really much to laugh about. It's not that funny. But anyway, I was thinking, since I refuse to play Counter-Strike, I thought why not help people who are abandoning ship and moving over to VALORANT with 5 tips for all of you CS2 players who just want to play some VALORANT. So let's get right into it with the number 1 tip. Do not spray. Spray patterns in this game are quite random. They follow a similar pattern to those in Counter-Strike. You cannot reliably spray your weapons. This means that tap shooting is vital. Basically, in order to fire well in this game, you need to make sure that you're expelling as little bullets as possible to kill. The gun you most want to buy is the Vandal, which is practically the AK-47. However, don't rule out spraying altogether. Barrel stuffing is highly effective, especially with the Spectre, VALORANT's main SMG, similar to like the UMP back when it was really good, and other guns such as the Frenzy and the Judge. Spraying can also be very effective against a Neon that is running you down because that motherfucker can move. Now we'll move on to the second tip, which is pick a character that suits your strengths and your playstyles. In the game, there are plenty of agents, but they all fit into 4 main roles, similar to roles that you would have in a 5-stack in CS. The first role is the duelist, which is practically the entry fragger. Your goal is to jump into sight and try and make space for the other people in your team to come in. You're not even expected to get a kill, you're just expected to make it easier for everyone to get on site. If you get a kill, that's a really good bonus, and that's what makes you a really good entry fragger.
Let's say you entried every round, you got so much space, and your team always traded. You never got a kill though, and you went 0-13 or 0-12 the first half. That's fucking great. That's great. That's amazing.
Next up is the controller, which are mostly smokes. They simply are players who have access to smoke grenades, but they're much easier to place and can be placed from pretty much halfway across the map. They also have other abilities to take space, such as Omen's Blind, which is basically another flash, alongside Viper and Harbor's walls, and Brimstone's Molotov. Initiator. This is the person who sets up plays and throws utility that helps the team as they enter site. These are things such as Sova's Dart, which can be used to reveal enemies while entering a site, making it hard for the enemy team to remove the dart because they are busy fighting the duelist. It can be quite helpful to have an initiator that has a really good flash if your duelists don't have a flash ability, such as they have a jet or an ISO. And finally, the Sentinels. Not to be confused with the team that Tens is on, but the characters. These characters are mostly used for their defensive reasons. Characters such as Cypher and Killjoy can use their abilities to practically make it impossible for players to cross certain areas. Cypher especially, with his tripwires that make it kind of impossible to go through doorways sometimes. Now that I've gone through this with you, try and think of a role that would suit you the most. Are you the entry, ready to die and most likely go negative for the sake of clearing space and winning the game for the team? Are you the initiator, a player that is ready to call strats, an IGL if you must?
One enemy remaining.
Are you a controller, someone who's known to throw smokes and to assist their team from behind and pull the strings? Maybe you know a load of lineups in CS and you're just willing to learn some cheeky ones in VALORANT too. Super general. Or are you a sentinel? Someone who purely plays for the team and is willing to use utility to win the game. It's vital to get this down before you ever think of progressing up the skill ladder. However, it's also important that you make sure you're willing to play other roles sometimes, especially if you choose to be the main duelist. On to rule number 3. Be respectful and be prepared to tilt.
My stupid jet! L! Report my jet!
In my experience, I found that VALORANT tends to be 10 times more tilting than CS, especially in EU. Not being able to pick servers in CS was a blessing in disguise because it meant I most likely would never understand the abuse being hurled at me. But now in VALORANT, queuing local servers and understanding everything that these pricks have to say is 10 times more infuriating, especially when they're French.
If you don't throw the smoke, we're all gonna die, right? Do you hear that? Do you hear that? You understand? If we have to clear 7 angles, you fucking fat fuck!
This means making sure that you're able to deal with the egos of this game. Every role makes you feel important to the team, and with this importance comes a lot of self-belief and belief that you cannot do anything wrong. You'll find yourself critiquing your team's playstyle way more than you do in CS, even though they're the same rank as you for a reason and they are using a kit you are not familiar with. They're playing a completely different game. Every role is an entirely different game. It's very hard to judge someone's playstyle effectively with certain abilities when you are not the person who has sunk hundreds of hours into that character's utility. With this being said, I think it's best, just like in CS, to focus on yourself and make sure that you're watching what you can do better instead of focusing on what your solo queue teammates can do better. Fine, point out mistakes and what you can do better in the short term, but do it constructively, because a broken mental in one player can be the make or break in Valorant. You cannot just out-aim the enemy in a 4v5. For example, if your Omen, which is a smokes character, gives up, you have no smokes for the rest of the game, and it's just impossible to execute or defend any site. Now, moving on to the last thing, the community/skins. What? Why you say this?
Because it's true. Wow.
You gotta be kidding me. The community in Valorant, at least in the EU, is very similar to that of CS. In fact, if you call back to the ego thing I said earlier, you'll come to see that Valorant players tend to snap much quicker than CS players, but otherwise are limited on what they can say due to the chat bans. Fun fact, don't type kill yourself in chat, because you'll get instantly muted.
Thank you.
What the fuck is the
And last of all, skins. I'm not going to speak on them too much because daring to say that another game's skins might be slightly more interesting than CS's is a cardinal sin in this day and age. However, I will say that they're not as much as a scam as you think. At least these skins you can actually afford to play with. Alongside this, Riot Games are just following the same practices as every other company. No one in the CS community is up in arms about Overwatch or Fortnite or even Rocket Leagues doing these practices. Having a skin market is a very exclusive and weird thing that has led to many disasters in CS that most companies just don't want to deal with. Hopefully you now have the information and the skills that it takes to go into your first Valorant games. Anyways, that's been me. Make sure to click all the buttons and don't forget to
Stay frosty.
Internet personas we hide behind. We all got demons deep inside us. We try to hide.